He wasn't supposed to be here. For most of his life, Pedro Pascal was just another name buried in the credits. Another face in a long line of struggling actors clawing their way through Hollywood. Audition after audition, year after year, nothing to show for it but rent stress and rejection emails. And then suddenly, he was everywhere. The Mandalorian. The Last of Us. Massive Netflix hits, viral interviews, magazine covers, TikTok edits, memes, daddy of the internet, heartthrob. Woke icon. Safe masculine role model. Leading man. He didn't just break through, he exploded. And Hollywood can't seem to get enough. But when a rise happens this fast, with this much praise, and this much personality-driven branding, you have to stop and wonder, did Pedro Pascal finally get the recognition he deserved? Or is he the latest creation of a very calculated machine, one built to give us the perfect man, until we decide to tear him apart? Hollywood has made up its mind. Pedro Pascal is not just another actor, he's the actor. Over the past few years, Pedro has somehow gone from struggling character performer to the face of every major studio, Marvel, Disney, HBO, A24, and more. He's not just landing roles, he's dominating them. 4 leading roles per year, multiple franchises at once, critical acclaim, meme-ified fandom, and all of this at an age when most actors are either typecast or forgotten. But here's where things start to feel unusual. Most actors reach the top through a standout performance, an Oscar-winning role, a directorial debut, something that forces the industry to pay attention. But Pedro Pascal's rise hasn't been about a single performance. It's been about his image, a very specific image. He's become the personification of modern masculinity. Not too masculine, not too feminine, rugged yet soft, sexy but emotionally available, an ally, a protector, a feminist. A man who compliments women's nails and never interrupts them in interviews. In other words, Pedro Pascal isn't just playing characters. He's playing a cultural symbol. It's easy to look at Pedro Pascal today and assume that he was always destined for this. But the truth is, he spent 20 years in Hollywood as a nobody. Pedro started acting in the late 90s, taking any role he could get. One-episode appearances on shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Touched by an Angel, NYPD Blue, Law and Order. These weren't stepping stones. They were survival tactics, the kind of gigs you take to pay rent. In fact, Pedro has shared that he was literally saved from eviction by a random $7,000 royalty check from his Buffy episode. Money that came at the exact moment he was ready to give up acting entirely. By the time he turned 36, Pedro Pascal had done everything right. He went to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. He trained in theater. He paid his dues, but he was still living paycheck to paycheck, with no real shot at making it big. And then came his first real breakthrough, a role in a little show called Game of Thrones. Pedro Pascal's portrayal of Oberyn Martell, aka the Red Viper, in Game of Thrones Season 4 changed everything. It wasn't a lead role, he was in only 7 episodes, and yet, he stole the season. Oberyn was charismatic, seductive, dangerous, a bisexual prince with a personal vendetta and unmatched fighting skills. From his very first appearance on screen, Pedro radiated something that no one else in the cast did: control. Even when surrounded by dragons, kings, and knights, he owned every scene. And then, of course, came that moment, one of the most shocking, graphic, and emotionally devastating deaths in television history. The mountain crushing his skull mid-victory speech. That moment didn't just make Oberyn unforgettable. It made Pedro unforgettable. And it proved that he could do more than play a supporting role. He could create impact. After Game of Thrones, Pedro Pascal's career took off. He landed roles in Narcos as DEA agent Javier Peña, in Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and in The Great Wall alongside Matt Damon. These weren't leading man roles yet, but they were consistent, visible, and respectable. But something else was happening at the same time. Something less tangible. Pedro's interviews were going viral, not because of controversy, but because of his demeanor, his body language, his warmth, his soft-spoken appreciation of women, his gentle teasing, his nail compliments. Yes, nail compliments. It became a recurring theme. He'd ask female interviewers about their nail polish, compliment their style, and genuinely listen, all while maintaining an aura of respect, flirtation, and charm. The internet took notice, and just like that, Pedro Pascal became more than an actor. He became a fantasy. Somewhere along the line, the internet crowned him Daddy. Not Dad, not Zaddy, just Daddy. The internet's daddy, Daddy Pedro, the daddy of modern masculinity, and Pedro leaned in, hard. Daddy is a state of mind, he said during an interview. I'm your daddy. And every time he said something like this, it went viral. Clips, edits, fan cams. Twitter posts with millions of views. Subreddits devoted to analyzing his eye contact. TikToks praising his soft energy. Fan fiction, fan art, fan obsession. Pedro Pascal wasn't being treated like a movie star. He was being treated like a spiritual boyfriend, and Hollywood couldn't believe their luck. Once Pedro became a cultural symbol, the offers came flooding in. But these were just any offers, they were legacy-defining. Disney cast him as the title character in The Mandalorian, one of the most successful Star Wars properties in decades. Then HBO cast him as Joel in The Last of Us, which went on to break streaming records and receive overwhelming critical acclaim. 2 lead roles, 2 mega franchises, 2 globally recognized, emotionally heavy characters, and he pulled them off while hiding behind a helmet or a grizzled beard the entire time. By 2024, Pedro Pascal had become Hollywood's safest bet. He was family-friendly, memeable, culturally relevant, politically safe, and charming to every demographic. And yet, critics started to notice something strange. No one was really talking about his acting anymore. They were talking about his aura, his likability, his wokeness, his Instagram captions, his sensitivity, his soft boy energy. And that's when people started asking, is this still about Pedro Pascal the actor? Or is this about Pedro Pascal the product? The truth is, Pedro Pascal's public persona feels designed. In every interview, he compliments the host's nails, he listens attentively to their stories, he makes self-deprecating jokes about anxiety, he talks about being an immigrant, a refugee, a feminist, a supporter of LGBTQ+ rights. And it's not that these things are bad, they're not. But the repetition, the precision of these moments has fans questioning whether this is the real Pedro Pascal, or a version of him tailored to keep the machine running. Even fans began to notice that it was starting to feel too curated. Some called it gay best friend energy. Others said he acted like a meme generator, pausing for dramatic effect, giving the perfect clip for TikTok edits, smiling in a way that feels like a wink to the algorithm. He seemed more aware of his own fan service than ever before. Then Pedro Pascal took a turn, one that always changes the conversation. He started getting political. After Donald Trump's 2024 re-election, Pedro began speaking more openly and aggressively about social issues. On Instagram, he posted about gender rights, immigration, trans visibility, and attacks on democracy. He stood up for his transgender sister, Lux, and criticized public figures like J.K. Rowling. "Bullies make me sick," he said. "I want to protect the people I love." And while much of his fan base praised his activism, others saw it differently. He wasn't just taking a stand. He was calling out fans who disagreed, publicly mocking them, sharing sarcastic responses, dismissing criticism not with nuance, but with aggression. And suddenly, the perfect internet daddy didn't feel so soft anymore. Around this time, the backlash began. People started noticing his constant touching of female co-stars. A viral clip showed him grabbing Vanessa Kirby's hand on stage. Others showed him hugging, kissing, and caressing actresses. Always playfully, always with smiles, but always in a way that raised eyebrows. Was it anxiety, friendly affection, or was it something else? Some fans said, if any other man did this, he'd be cancelled already. Others coined the term Pascal Fatigue, a reaction to how over-present he had become. Too many roles, too many interviews, too much press, too much Pedro. Even news outlets that had once praised him began to change their tone. The Telegraph ran a headline that read, "Pedro Pascal could rule Hollywood if Disney can get him to shut up." Here's where it all comes together. Pedro Pascal is currently attached to 7 major projects, including Fantastic Four, Gladiator 2, and several secret roles in development. He's working non-stop, filming across countries, maintaining his public persona, and staying visible online. But the louder the praise gets, the more unstable it all becomes. Pedro's image was built on being perfect. The perfect man, the perfect feminist, the perfect ally, the perfect listener. That image is impossible to maintain forever. One misstep, one scandal, one controversial post, and it all falls apart. We've seen it before. With Johnny Depp, with Ezra Miller, with Armie Hammer, even with Marvel's own Jonathan Majors. The internet builds people up faster than ever, but it also destroys them just as quickly. The obsession that made Pedro Pascal a superstar could be the same force that tears him down. Because when your fame is built on being relatable, the second you become too much, you're no longer aspirational. You're exhausting. Pedro Pascal is undoubtedly talented. He's charming, he's funny, he's worked harder than most, and for that, he deserves his success. But Hollywood didn't just reward his talent, they branded him as the cultural ideal. The face of modern masculinity. The internet's daddy. The savior of Disney and Marvel. The gentle revolutionary. And now, we're seeing what happens when someone becomes too perfect for too long. Pedro Pascal isn't just acting anymore. He's performing for the world. And it's only a matter of time before the performance becomes too obvious. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Pedro Pascal's rise is genuine? Or is he the most carefully manufactured Hollywood product we've seen in a decade? Smash the like button if you enjoyed this deep dive. Subscribe for more breakdowns just like this, and check out the next video on screen for another cultural analysis. And hey, if you're wearing polish today, show me your nails. Daddy would want to see them.